more. I was even trying to replicate popular renders from well-known architects who use V-Ray or Corona, as you may know, the most popular render engines. But those take a big learning curve and are quite slow to render. They are literally taking hours to render just one image. I started posting in Lumion groups my images, and many of them got hundreds of likes and comments. People kept asking me how I made the lighting, how I made realistic materials, what are my secrets. I started my YouTube channel and it grew quickly to about 20,000 subscribers in just 4 months, and it's currently growing fast. But that wasn't enough. I had to pack all of these questions that people kept asking me and put them all together and organize them in what became my Lumion Render course. In the course, I'm teaching all there is to know about good lighting, how to make realistic materials that make people go whoa, how to make exterior building renders, interiors, even without any natural light. This is, by the way, one of the subjects that people have more trouble with. But this also wasn't enough. I had to create a Facebook support group for my students, so they don't feel stuck or discouraged at any point. I'm always there every day to answer all the questions they may have and give them my tips to improve their renders. And actually, this now grew into a community where I don't have to answer immediately some questions, because other student members of the group jump in helping each other in the threads. It's becoming a real great place to be. So that's just a quick look at how Lumion Render course came about, and we'll talk more about the full program at the end. But what I want to do now is give you a sneak peek of some of the content inside the program and also give you as much free training as I can. So we are now going to dive into my top 10 secrets to achieving realistic 3D renders. Whatever technology you are using to achieve photorealistic images, you will keep failing because you have to follow some basic principles. The most sophisticated 3D software can only help you to get realistic images by 80%. The other 20% that will make it or break it, it will all depend on you and on the 10 secrets I'm going to teach you on this training. Increasing the quality of your 3D renders really comes down to observation. You need to observe how the light, materials, shadows, how everything works in the real world. The tips I'm going to show you will help you achieve astonishing results. Tip number 1. Bevel those edges. Computers are great at perfection. The real world is far from it. If you make a cube in any 3D software, it will be perfect with edges at a 90-degree angle. In the real world, this doesn't happen. It's impossible for two surfaces to be with perfect right angles for this sharp edge to occur. If you look at any surface around you, even the sharpest ones, you will notice there is rounding, some imperfections like damage and small chips. So in order to have realistic results, you need to bevel the edges. Also, by doing this, you will create highlights. This adds volume and makes your scene more interesting visually. It becomes really important when these objects are seen up close. Luckily for us, we live in times where this round edge can be done in the shader, and all it takes is just to adjust one setting. In Lumion, for example, there is in the material settings an option to round the edges. Have a look at this example without and with the round edges. Remember, it just took one mouse click to achieve this extra realism in Lumion. It's that easy. My second tip I have for you is camera. This is probably one of the most important points. If you're not a good photographer, you will not have a great render. You need to learn the basic things about photography to be able to understand what makes a good image. If you don't know it, it's not a crime. But for example, if you don't understand the effect the focal length has on your images, there is a big barrier in creating photoreal imagery. It's very common to see 3D renders that look different from a real-world camera lens. That's because 3D virtual cameras are mathematically perfect. On the other hand, physical glass lenses would produce imperfect, distorted images. Common mistakes are super wide shots that feature no distortion or close-up macro-style shots that have no depth of field. With a physical camera, there is no choice. These features are naturally occurring. Be aware of these fundamental differences. Take a real camera out, preferably a digital SLR, and experience for yourself how a physical lens works. So that was the problem. Now pick up your pen and write down the solution. First, you need to position the camera between 1 and 1.2 meters from the ground level. This works best. A 35mm lens produces the most natural image, as it's closest to the human eye, Avoid using anything lower than 30 millimeters, as it distorts the view. Favor a smaller frame over a larger one, as showing a small segment of the building allows the viewer to focus on a particular feature and not get distracted by any other objects. Tip number 3. Composition. The composition is one of the most important rules in creating a perfect image for any purpose. You have to use these rules and tricks to draw a viewer's attention for particular objects, which are the most important in your project. Let's speak about the rule of thirds. This is a guideline for creating visual images. Imagine that you divide an image into 9 equal pieces. Then you should place important things you want to draw your focus on along these lines. Take this example. It doesn't look so good, right? But if we move the subject along these lines, it immediately makes a strong composition. Symmetry. With symmetry, you give the image stability. There is nothing to distract your eyes. It will enhance your main focus of attention. This shot of a building uses horizontal symmetrical composition. The left and right halves of an image are symmetrical to each other. This is the form of symmetry that you usually see in architectural structures. In a vertical symmetrical composition, a subject and its reflection occupy the top and bottom halves of the image. This is the kind of symmetry that you can find in water reflections. Golden ratio. The golden ratio has been used as a powerful composition tool for centuries. It is a design principle based on a ratio of 1 to 1,618. Acclaimed as the perfect number, the golden ratio can help you in creating images that have a strong composition that will attract viewers to your image. You can find a lot of examples of this rule even in nature, like shell, plants, nature, human body, etc. Number 4. Colors. Colors stimulate emotions and have a strong impact on an image's mood. They can also draw attention towards the most important part of the image. You can transmit a message using colors. One thing to understand is the color schemes. The most popular is the complementary. This refers to two colors that are opposite to each other on the color wheel. This is used quite frequently in movies, games, and paintings. You can use tools like Adobe Color to check which colors are complementary. And tip number 5, lighting. The most powerful tool to reflect emotions is lighting. It can create atmosphere, change the mood, and add some depth to any image. That's why you have to think about lighting very carefully while you are creating an image. Since we are born, we are accustomed to seeing light everywhere and how it behaves. Without light, there is nothing, just darkness, pitch black. Depending on the time of the day, the light can change the scene and the impact it makes. Golden hour. This is the best time of the day for photographers to shoot. This is the first hour of light in the morning and the last hour of light in the night. The reason for this is that when the light is lower in the sky, it creates the most flattering, beautiful light. Golden hour creates a warm, artistic lighting that gives additional depth to any image, enhancing the colors, textures, and where the shadows are softest. It works really well in both interior and exterior images. An interesting time to make your renders is called the blue hour, also known as dusk or twilight. It is the time between sunset and darkness, where the environment is filled with blue tones and interior lights are turned on. This creates a nice contrast for the scenes, using complementary colors, as I mentioned before, the blue from the exterior and the orange warm lights from the interior. Midday. This happens when the sun is at highest point, usually between 12 and 3 p.m. But this creates harsh shadows from the sun. In general, photographers tend to avoid this time of day, and artists as well. But lately, it's becoming more of a trend to use midday, as in renders with a more controlled environment, you can get nice results with that beautiful deep blue sky. Also, if it's clearly daytime, avoid turning on lights indoors. Since the sun is the most powerful light source we have, everything else will be just swallowed by it. This is a common mistake I see many of my students make. Having a bright daylight render and all houses full of lights as bright as the sun. This simply cannot happen in real life. Night. This is used for cityscapes where you can see a huge variety of different lights, or can even be for a more dramatic or mysterious environment. Now let's move to a more technical part of the light. We measure light in the Kelvin temperature scale, like this one you are seeing right now. The lower the value, the warmer the light will be. Warmer colors are inviting and remind us of home. We are most comfortable around warmer lighting at around 2700 Kelvin. Cooler colors relate more of environments, factories, train stations, and other public places. Since usually this type of light is cheaper. Also, the sun temperature is around 5700 Kelvin. Surfaces reflect light. A wall, the floor, land, everything reflects light. And this usually refers to light bounces. These light bounces also can be drawn with several different colors that you have on your scene. For example, take a look at this image. You can see the green being reflected on the floor. Usually, you can define how many times you want light to bounce around the scene. In Lumion, this effect is named Paper Light. The Paper Light effect is for the natural light, the sun, and the illumination effect for the artificial lights. We need to take into account how the light passes through objects, the refraction. Through glass will create these shadows, or even through a curtain, light will start to lose its power when entering the room. Through water, creating this visual effect that you've probably seen dozens of times, called caustics. Before we move to the next point, I want to speak another common mistake I see students make regarding interiors. It's when you have a nice render with beautiful sunlight coming inside the room, and the background image people choose, the shadows are facing the opposite direction of the sun in our interior. Again, this is fixed by through observation. Also, I recommend getting the book Light for Visual Artists by Richard Yot. It really helps you understand how lighting works. So, lighting is a huge part of creating realistic renders, and I covered it extensively throughout my Lumion render course. Also, I want to remind you that if you stick until the end of this training, you will learn how to make in Lumion this interior scene you are seeing right now. My tip number 6, atmosphere. When you look at any landscape, you will probably notice that the more distance you have, the lighter and faded the elements become. This is because the particles in the air are being lit by the sunlight. If you make a render without this, the image looks like it doesn't have any depth. There is no clear distinction between what is close to us and what is far. That's why it's important to always add a fog effect to our scenes. And sometimes, depending on the software, you can also add a precipitation effect, because this helps to break some of the tiling of the textures you have, and also gives you those nice reflections. My tip number 7, materials. The best way to know how to create good materials is to observe what's around you. Check how much reflection a wooden panel does in comparison to a plastic surface. To make realistic materials, you need 3 things. Number 1, good resolution. Compare these images in 1K, 4K, and 8K. Huge difference, isn't it? The second thing is no repetition. A good texture is one in which you cannot notice the repetition when you tile it. The human eye can detect these things quite easily, and this tells immediately your brain that this is not a real image. Take this example you are seeing right now. You can clearly see the texture repetition here. But now, using the same texture, but tileable, you can barely notice any repetition and looks much more realistic. And the next is PBR materials. These materials are physically correct. They follow the rules of the real-world materials. Usually, you have an albedo or diffuse map. This is for color. A normal map to create some lighting within the texture. A gloss or reflection map to define which areas are more reflective than others. And a displacement map to displace which areas are higher or lower in your map. One important note about color: don't use pure white or pure black, as this never occurs in real life. Nothing is pure white or pure black. So always use a light gray or a dark gray as white or black. And tip number 8, building the scene around the scene. So it's also important to point out to create a scene around the scene. And what do I mean by that? This means that you cannot just place your house or building and that's it. You need to create some trees, some street lights and sidewalks, maybe some buildings in the background. But not just the background. You also need to build in front of the building, so you can get some shadows, lighting differences, and most important, reflections. I cannot tell you how many times I see people asking why their windows look like they have no reflection. It's because there is nothing to reflect. You need to add all of those elements to make a good render. Tip number 9. Chaos. Any 3D software will produce perfectly flat surfaces, which are the enemy of realism. Even if your surfaces are relatively clean, like a smooth painted interior wall for example, you should add a little bit of imperfection to the surface. Surfaces that seem relatively clean and unweathered still have variety. This can be due to lighting, dirt and scratch marks, or even surfaces that catch highlights and self-shadow. The idea here is to make your surfaces with some imperfections. You can use some noise patterns applied in a normal map or gloss map that helps to break up this uniform surface. Here you can see a perfect surface of a wall. Now, if we introduce some noise, you can see how this increases the realism. It looks much better. Take another example. This wooden floor is too clean, and even a wooden floor that has just been cleaned, it will still have some smudges and some light scratch marks. So look what happens when we introduce these textures. It immediately looks much more realistic. And my last tip is post-production and photorealism. All the renders need a little bit of post-production. Usually the render comes mathematically perfect, and as I mentioned before, real physical lands have a lot of imperfections. So to make our render look real, we should introduce those imperfections back, since the human eye is used to seeing the photos with them. I'm talking about lens distortion, chromatic aberrations, lens vignetting, lens flares, and some light noise. All of those imperfections will result in a much better and realistic render. So there you have my top 10 secrets to achieving realistic 3D renders. Knowing them simply isn't enough. You gotta actually practice this to learn them. Practice makes perfect. And don't forget that I'm going to throw in one more bonus secret at the very end of the training. I'll show you how to make an interior render of this scene in Lumion if you stick with me until the end of the training. So now I want to dive into Lumion Render course to give an idea of what the full program includes. It's for anyone who enjoys my teaching style, has gotten a lot of value out of this training, and who would like to learn a lot more. Again, this is a short training and the Lumion Render program is over 6 hours of video lessons, and I'm adding new content to it constantly. So as far as content goes, here's a quick look at the topics I cover. You will learn how to create an exterior scene, how to make the render presets, the materials and shaders, creating PBR textures for Lumion, making the humanization, how to use Megascans, and how to make post-production in Photoshop. In the interior model, I cover the cameras you should use, what is light and shadow, how weather affects the scene, and color correction. Then I move to lighting setup, material, changing to night scene, and post-production. I have a model for Lumion animation, another for an interior scene without any natural light, a dark interior scene, and one for studio lighting. Plus, I have a whole section with resources. So that it is. That is what Lumion Render course includes. So there is only one upfront cost, and you'll have access to all the current content and for as long as the course exists. And you can watch it at your own pace. Also, you get several bonuses, like a pack of my most popular Lumion scenes. With these scenes, you can open them and check how I made things and even use my render presets. You will also get a 20% discount for Lime Exporter plugin. It's a plugin that exports from 3ds Max to Lumion with all the textures already applied in the 3D model. And you will also get access to my Facebook support group for students only. And an exclusive bonus of this webinar only that you cannot get anywhere else, a pack of high quality premium 3D models. You have the FBX, OBJ or 3ds Max file, you just drag and drop them into your scene. These high-quality premium models are valued at $120. So, when you add all this bonus, that's a real-world value of $275 that you can get for free. Here's an example of one of our members who actually joined Lumion Render course and the review he gave. Van Buren said, "Nuno's course is great. If you are a beginner with Lumion or looking to craft your scenes to take them a step further, his course is the way to go. You'll be happy how well your renders will look by the end. I've used the program for 2 years now, but have learned to polish them off for that extra wow effect with these tips and tricks." Another member who was learning from YouTube before he joined the course said, "I decided to enroll in his course and apply his Lumion principles to my current projects. The results were instant and my work is 100% better now. His videos are short and straight to the point. I was literally watching his videos on my laptop and doing projects on PC simultaneously. After taking his course, I completely abandoned V-Ray, and I was using V-Ray since my college days. I believe it is important to mention that I am at Ringling College of Art and Design in Florida, United States, and Nuno's level of teaching is very similar to what I had there. By the way, it's a very expensive school. I am so happy I found Nuno. So without further ado, we will finally get to the price of the full program, and as promised, I'll be offering an exclusive discount for those who hang around till the end of this training. I currently have it priced at $397, but as an early bird special, while the program is still growing, I'm selling it just for $297. But as a better offer, and as a training discount only, if you join within the next 20 minutes, you'll get an additional $50 off by clicking on the link that I'll provide here in a second. And once you click on that link, it will take you to this custom discount page, click the buy button, set up an account with your email and password, and then you will see the $50 off discount coupon already applied on the checkout page. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the offer. Like I said, this offer is good for the next 20 minutes. And here we go. So there's the offer. Again, this offer is available only for the attendees of this free training. So if you are thinking about joining, now would be the time to do so. And while that offer is ticking, I'll be answering some of the top questions I get asked during this free training. So feel free to add your own questions in the message box. I'll try to reply to as many as I can by email within about 24 hours. Also, don't forget that I still have to show you the bonus tutorial at the very end of this training. Meanwhile, let's get to the questions. First question: what is the success rate of people who join Lumion Render course? I recently did a poll in our private Facebook group and found out that over 87% of the Lumion Render course students are using this software actively for professional projects, and about 7% said they were just getting started with Lumion. So the success rate is pretty high as long as you apply what I teach in the course. Next question: why would I buy this course if I can just watch free YouTube tutorials? I really like this question. Of course, you can always binge on some YouTube videos, but first of all, you never know if they are up to date, and I personally wasted a lot of time watching videos on YouTube trying to figure out how to achieve realistic 3D renders. But the problem is, whenever I needed to complete a project for my client, a new question would come up, or I didn't know how to complete a certain task. And only after the work was done, I would accidentally find a solution on another YouTube video. So I was learning pretty much by making mistakes and learning from them. A lot of time wasted searching for the right way. With my Lumion Render course, I have packed years of knowledge I accumulated and laid it all out in a well-structured and logical sequence of lessons that you can watch in one full day and start implementing them from there. You know guys, what I learned by my age is that time is money. And it's not just a saying. Think of it this way: if this course helps you land just one client, just one interior or one exterior render project, it will pay for itself. But I promise you, if you apply what I teach, it will give you a lot more than just one paying client. Next question: will this course work for me? This course will work for you if you are an architect, an interior designer, a 3D generalist, 3D visualization artist, 3D artist, a general Lumion user, and in general, for people who want to learn how to create highly realistic renders in seconds. Will I learn everything from zero? No, this course is intended for people that already have a general knowledge of 3D applications. How long it will take me to make the first render? If you follow all the steps I teach in my course, in general, you will be able to make a high-quality render in about 1 to 2 hours from building up the scene until the final render for a simple scene. Which version of Lumion do I need? You can use any version of Lumion from 8 and above. What I'm teaching in the course will not have anything specifically from the newer version, so everyone can follow along. I'm using SketchUp. Can I take your course? Absolutely. My course is teaching you how to make realistic 3D renders in Lumion. Doesn't matter which 3D modeling software you use. I provide all the necessary files for you to follow along. Another question: how long do I have to complete it? How many times can I go back and rewatch the course? You will have lifetime access to the course, it will never expire, and you can watch at your own pace and rewatch as many times as you would like. This is a never-ending source of Lumion tips and tricks. In which format the course is designed? The easiest way to learn for most people is by watching video tutorials. You will have videos and all the 3D models and textures for you to follow along. You can get access to me personally in our private Facebook group for course students and ask me any questions you have about Lumion. Do I need any other software besides Lumion to complete the course? No, you can follow along if you have just Lumion. I provide all the necessary files like 3D models and textures for you to follow along. Next question. If I have a specific question, how can I contact you? Any questions you have, you'll have access to the Facebook support group for students only, and you can ask all the questions there. I'm personally replying once a day, and I think this is a very important part of the program, which you can get as a free bonus to the video lessons. It's an access to a practicing professional who can help you overcome any roadblocks and shorten your learning curve. For those of you who stuck with me until the end of this free training, as I promised, I have a special bonus for you today. I'll now show you inside Lumion how you can make a realistic interior render. So let's dive into it. So now to the bonus secret part, how to create this interior render in Lumion. So I started, as you can see, with a blank template, with a white template. And I just have on this model 3 window openings. As you can see, these 2 windows are the main ones, and they'll be the ones that are visible to the camera. And then I have this one that I just left like this without any window frames or any glass because it will not be visible, and so I didn't bother too much with model all of this that will not be seen, right? And also on this side I have this black wall. And why is that? Because I want to have some contrast here. I want these shadows to be darker, and if I had here the white wall, as I showed you previously in the training, with the white wall the light will bounce more. So I put this black so the light almost doesn't bounce around, and these areas here will be darker. That's what I wanted. Now as for the lighting, I used here on the backsplash some lighting, like this is line lights. Okay, you can control the width, you can control the length. Okay, so it's quite easy to adjust. And I adjusted as well the fall off, because if I had it like this, you see that it starts giving too much light, even to the countertop. So I just adjusted about 1.9 is fine, more or less. And I just duplicate this light to this part here and this part here as well. So they are just duplicated. I just adjusted the width. And another light that I had was this spotlight on the exterior, just to give a little bit of light boost, and also so we can have a little bit of these shadows and some of the highlights and some details that will not be visible if you don't make this. So for example, if I remove this, you see, even in the final render, you will not have such strong effect as you would with this spotlight. So let's put it back. About here, just like this, okay. Now, another one that I add in this window, it's an area light, and it's just, again, to give a little bit of boost of light. And if I remove it, see the difference, and putting it back, okay. So basically, as for lighting, that's it. Oh, actually, no. I still added some of the spotlights here. Actually, this one, for these lights here, 2 spotlights to give a little bit of light here, just slightly. And also 2 lights here, one and another here, just to give a little bit of light boost from this recessed lights here on the top. And as for the materials, they are pretty much the standard material. There's nothing